Hey, thanks for watching us tonight. Anarchy in the streets. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. About 4,000 protesters took to the streets in Portland, Oregon last night. More than 20 arrested as radicals turned the demonstration into a disgraceful spectacle. Now, I lived in Portland. It's a beautiful place, but run by permissive, progressive people. They have allowed the downtown area to become a squatter's haven full of drug addicts and alcoholics who lay about, sometimes menacing passersby. Tough place to take kids. So it comes as no surprise that the City of Roses has become ground zero for anarchy. The solution to violent protests is to charge anyone who destroys property or hurts another person with rioting. That is a Class C felony in Oregon, carrying a prison term of up to 5 years. But I can tell you that will not happen in Portland. Most of those anarchists will receive no punishment whatsoever. And therein lies a very dangerous situation in this country. The election of Donald Trump has shaken the progressive community. In the space of 4 days, they have gone from having some power to nothing. President Trump is not going to pander to the far left, and they know it. And that's the way democracy goes. If the people believe political policies are not working, they change the structure. And then we have the race component. In Chicago, 49-year-old David Wilcox beaten by two men while a crowd screamed, "Don't vote Trump."
You voted Trump! You voted Trump! Oh, yeah! She missed every time. Yeah! Beat his ass! Don't vote Trump!
Now, that is a definite hate crime, but Illinois does not categorize political violence in that way. And based on Chicago's record, those thugs who beat that innocent man will receive very little punishment. That's why the Windy City is the most violent place in the country. The progressive structure will not stop the madness. That display should cause every state in the union to classify political violence as a hate crime, because that's what it is. California, Iowa, West Virginia, D.C., Louisiana, and South Carolina have already done that. Everybody else should get on it. Summing up, a free election should be respected. Those who harm other people and destroy property in the name of protests are criminals, and society should punish them harshly. And that's the memo. Now for the top story reaction with us here in New York City, Eric Bolling and Geraldo Rivera. What say you, Rivera?
I think that you're right onto something, that it should be classified a hate crime. They were thugs. The book should be thrown at anyone who hurts people or destroys property. Ironically, you mentioned Portland being one of the most liberal cities in the nation. It is. It voted strongly for Hillary Clinton. New York, I got stopped, Eric and I, going to a play the other night, and we couldn't cross 6th Avenue. There were 1,000 screaming demonstrators. New York voted 87% for Hillary Clinton. So these people are destroying the property of those with whom they have some political affiliation and they're in sync with. So it is so stupid for them to vent in the way that they are. It's really deplorable.
What do you say, Bolling?
You're 100% right, and I agree with Geraldo. We respect the right to protest. We get that. Keep it peaceful protest. But even burn the flag if you want to. I'm against it. Wear the flag every day. However, you have the right to do it, constitutionally protected. But when you hurt someone, or even in these situations where you shut down businesses, these are people who've risked their lives and livelihood and capital to open a business, to put food on a table for a family. It's the American way. It's small business. You're hurting them too. I mean, what are you trying to prove here? They should do themselves a favor. There's a map out there that shows county by county across America who voted Trump and who voted Hillary Clinton. Now, there are a few counties on both of the coasts that were heavily populated that voted for Clinton, but the vast majority on a county by county basis is red. Most of the counties voted for Donald Trump.
We're going to get into the popular vote in a moment. But the hate crime thing, I feel very strongly about. Every state.
But in fairness,
every state.
In your montage, you could have also included those schools where white students simultaneously started shouting, "White power, build the wall, build the wall."
That was very small.
Well, I think that would be like we condemn it across the board.
No. You can't make a moral equivalence to what happened in Portland, Oregon, where millions of dollars in destruction and the police were put in harm's way and everything else, with some individual loons who may do appalling things.
I saw water fountains where the kids had put colored people, white people for different
Those are disturbed individuals, and they don't elevate up to a national story as the poor guy in Chicago who we saw obviously being attacked for the only reason of his vote. So I'm telling you, would either of you object
more
to
his race than his vote.
every state categorizing political violence as a hate crime? You're for it?
I'm for it.
Okay, but can we just make a distinction between people saying despicable things and deplorable things, being horrible,
and somebody kicking somebody in the head,
creating violence, breaking, causing destruction, property damage,
and racism on a large scale, or even a scale that is disturbing because of its explicitness, we'll cover it. But there isn't that right now. Now, I believe that these protests strengthen Donald Trump. These people who hate Trump are actually helping Trump. I said that for the vote, that the press helped Trump. They're going to feel sorry for Trump, and they're going to hate these people and go into his camp, right?
I agree, but I think now it is incumbent on President Obama and President-elect Trump to do more of what they did yesterday. They've got to have the dignity and the responsibility of that office. They have to. This nation is riven right now on racial lines. The white working class uprising that was the tsunami that brought Trump into the White House, and the lack of black turnout, the brown vote fizzling. I think that this is a divided country now. We have to bring people together, and the more Trump speaks,
what will happen? I don't think
incorrect statement. What in itself?
Donald
Trump got more of the Hispanic vote than Mitt Romney did, or
he got 29%.
He got almost the same amount of.
He got more black and Hispanics than Romney.
Almost as both of them.
Here's what's going to happen. All of this come by us stuff we have to come together is bull. It's not going to happen. What will happen is if Trump is successful economically, if he's successful economically, and jobs for the working men and women of all colors start to come back into this country, you'll see racial tensions lessen.
But do you really believe that can happen?
Yes.
Do you really believe? I mean, talk to the economists. You think that they're going to? You know what? Now they're making Fords in Mexico and they're paying $10 an hour instead of $45.
If Trump does the Reagan blueprint, okay, I believe that will happen. Go ahead.
Cutting corporate taxes is a huge thing. That will absolutely stimulate economic activity. However, the one thing that I think he has floated is the best idea, and which Republicans don't even like, is the $1 trillion infrastructure spending bill that he wants to start on right away.
He's got to get the money coming back from overseas to fund that.
Fine.
And if he does, we're all for it.
He said private as well. But you spend $1 trillion on something we need in every single community in America.
Would you spend that $1 trillion on a wall? Would you spend that money on a wall?
You don't have to. Mexico's going to pay for that wall.
Mexico's going to pay for
the wall. Mexico's going to pay for. They're already taking collections in Guadalajara. You didn't hear that? Yeah, they're passing the hat around for the wall. I don't know how well they're doing down there. All right, gentlemen, thank you. Next on the rundown, Hillary Clinton actually won the popular vote. Does it matter? Take a look at whether the election process should change in America. And later, sportscaster Stephen A. Smith very angry at Colin Kaepernick. We'll find out why. Upcoming. Campaign 2016 segment tonight. According to the latest count from the Associated Press, about 126 million votes were cast on Tuesday. 4 states, California, Florida, New York, and Texas, made up close to 30% of that total. California alone had about 13 million ballots cast and more to come. Now, the popular vote stands this way. Hillary Clinton, 60.5 million. Donald Trump, 60.1 million. So just 400,000 votes separate two candidates, with more to be counted, as I said. On the electoral college front, Arizona finally got its act together, and Trump won that state. So he has 290 electoral votes to Hillary Clinton's 228. As you know, 270 are needed to become president. The question, should the USA change to a straight popular vote? Joining us now from New Haven, Connecticut, Akil Amar teaches law at Yale and is the author of the book, The Constitution Today, The Timeless Lessons for the Issues of Our Era. And from Louisville, Kentucky, Dr. Gary Gregg, who teaches at the University of Louisville and is the author of the book, Securing Democracy, Why We Have an Electoral College. So, Dr. Gregg, you, in your book, say you favor the Electoral College. Please keep it simple so I can understand it. Why?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I favor it just because what we're seeing right now. We had a spirited campaign across the country. We had lots of people involved in it. Everybody got to be part of it. And we have a duly elected president. And what we are not doing is recounting across this country. You know, with the 400,000 right now or so difference in the popular vote, if we just went with a straight popular vote with almost 200,000 precincts in this country, we could be recounting across this country, because if you change just 2 votes in every precinct, you could change the election.
All right,
so,
but what about the folks who say, listen, Doc, 400,000 more Americans voted for Hillary Clinton, so the will of the people is Hillary Clinton, and that's that. How do you answer?
It's just a false statement, Bill, because the election was not run to try to get the most popular votes. So that would have been a totally different race.
Yeah, but I mean, how do you say that? Both candidates tried to get as many votes as they could get. Come on.
No, they didn't. They didn't do that. Otherwise, they would have. No. Trump would have gone to Texas, would have planted himself in Texas or Orange County, California, which he never went to.
All right, I see what you're saying.
Hillary would have just plopped herself down
so
to LA.
The strategic was to concentrate on the electoral votes. Okay,
that's exactly
Mr.
right.
Amar, are you dissent? You think the straight popular vote is the best way to go? Why?
Well, I do agree that if the rules had been different, the candidates would have played by different rules, and there are reasons to keep the Electoral College. I don't think the recount nightmare is the best reason. In 2000, the popular vote was nationwide was pretty clear, but Florida was razor close, and so was New Hampshire. So there were other states that were close. So big states manage recounts all the time. I think there are reasons to keep the Electoral College,
give me the best
this one
give me
isn't
the best
it.
one for the popular vote. What's the best reason?
Federalism and democracy. Here's a federalism argument. We have 50 states. They're not stupid. They pick governors. Governors are like presidents, and none of them has an electoral college. In California and Texas, we count all the votes equally.
In the governor races, it's a local situation. And the local situation is people know the candidates better. They're closer to them. There's more accessibility. In the national level, if you have a straight popular vote, forget about Idaho, forget about Wyoming, Hawaii, Alaska. They don't count. That you, as Dr. Gregg just said, you could just plant yourself in the major metropolitan areas, promise them the moon, and you win. And the other folks are disenfranchised totally.
Well, I'm not sure that's any different than Texas or Pennsylvania or California, which have big cities and vast rural areas. And so as I said, I think there is an argument for the Electoral College, but rural areas isn't it, and recounts isn't it, because we've got 50 states and we pick the people, one person, one vote, and if it's close, we recount them carefully.
I'm an Electoral College guy, and I think it's amazing that Thomas Jefferson and Madison and Franklin and Adams all understood the expansionary potential of the United States and said, you know what, we can't let Boston and Philly at that time and New York City dominate. We've got to give Georgia and the other new states some say in this, and that's why they put the Electoral College in, Doctor, is it not?
That's one of the reasons, for sure. I think, they wanted also to have a sort of deliberative process of people that actually knew the candidates to make the decisions. And that's not how it's worked. It is democracy. The opponents will say it's not democratic, but it is. It's 51 elections in the states. And you're absolutely right, Bill, when you say that if you took off the Electoral College, these rural areas would not ever be considered again.
Gone. And they'd have no stake in it. Last word, Mr. Omar.
Well, since you mentioned Georgia, as I said, the rural issue exists within states, but since you mentioned Georgia, one of the real reasons that they did have it is if you had direct popular vote nationwide, the South would have lost every time because its slaves wouldn't count. But within Electoral College, they did get to count slaves as part of the 3/5 compromise, which is not one of the more attractive features of the original Constitution.
Gentlemen, very interesting. We appreciate your point of views. Directly ahead, Chris Wallace on how the press is covering now President-elect Donald Trump. Then ESPN broadcaster Stephen A. Smith hammering Colin Kaepernick moments away. Personal story segment tonight. Beside myself, Chris Wallace is one of the first national TV guys to announce that Donald Trump had a good chance to win on election night. Chris joins us now from Washington. So before we get to your perspicacity, you talked to the New York Times earlier this week in an article they were doing, and you actually told them to their collective faces they didn't cover the campaign fairly. That took some moxie, and how did you arrive at that conclusion?
Well, I think, and it wasn't just the New York Times, although I did say it to the Times about the Times, I think a lot of the mainstream media just decided after the conventions that Donald Trump was beyond the pale. He was just not acceptable as a president, and so therefore the normal rules of objectivity and fairness no longer applied. And so in the New York Times case, they would use adjectives. They'd talk about flailing or desperate in a way that they would never say about the Clinton campaign. They used verbs like lurched, I remember. And this was not on the opinion page or the
no, it was in the hard
page.
News coverage. And they always brought things back to Trump's deficiencies. Every article started out in a different way, and then it all circled back. Now, what is it?
Bill, I got to tell you, if there was ever any doubt about the Times bias, I've only got to show you the front page of the New York Times yesterday, Thursday, the day after, because obviously the results came in the Wednesday paper, their second day coverage. And for those who can't see the headline, Democrats, students, and foreign allies face the reality of a Trump presidency. Not Trump takes over, Trump consolidates power, a new day. But students face reality. I expected him to say the proletariat faces the reality
that didn't offend
of Trump.
me.
That's an astonishing headline.
It is. It didn't offend me, though, because I don't see that as trying to social engineer the country. And that's my next question. Obviously, my opinion is that all of this media bias, which is indisputable, helped Trump, helped him. Because the folks said, you know what, I'm tired of this. We know you're being unfair, and we you know, you as the national media, we know this is not being, this is a con job by the media, so we're gonna vote for him anyway, even though we might not like him. That's what I think happened in a lot of cases.
I think Trump was quite brilliant in going after the media and basically lumping them in a different way than, let's say, Nixon did, lumping them in with all the other power elites, so all the other special interests in Washington, on Wall Street, and saying it's all part of a fixed game. And in the particular case of the New York Times, I got to say, they really let themselves down. And you know, maybe I'm I know you've had feelings about this for a long time. I was really shocked to see how openly slanted they were on the front news page of the paper.
Let me tell you something. I've been doing this for 20 years plus, okay? I have been attacked viciously by the national media in general, all right? Viciously attacked, unfairly, distorting, and you've seen it. You saw it. You know, it's like one every 18 months. What are they going to come up with next? And attack and attack and destroy and destroy. I told Trump, the first interview I did with him after he announced, I said, they're going to come after you like you've never seen anything. Because there are certain people, Chris, that they loathe. Working class, Trump's not working class, but he says he's speaking for them. I am a working class guy. And for us to attain power, for us to actually build up a following, offends them, personally offends them, because we are exactly what they despise. And that's what this was all about. And the working class people who voted for Trump knew it. They knew it.
Well, it was certainly the case of Trump. They just decided he was beyond the pale, and they were going to treat him that way. They weren't going to treat him as a legitimate presidential candidate and have any sense. And it wasn't just the Times. It was true of a lot of newspapers, too. The Washington Post. A lot of newspapers.
You know, the Washington Post was interesting because it did some good aggressive reporting, but its editorial page, I mean, you just look one after the other, after the other, after the other. Although this guy, Callum Borchers, is an honest guy at the Post. Now, this Sunday, you got Kellyanne Conway. This is an interesting question that I have. Does Trump have the stones to put Ms. Conway in as chief of staff? Because that woman saved his bacon, to use a cliche. She saved him. Does he have it to put her in there?
Yeah, but I'm not sure that's her best job. I'm not sure that's the right role for her. I have strong feelings about chief of staff because I've seen it done right and I've seen it done wrong. And you put in somebody who, well, this isn't true of Conway so much, and I agree, but she could do just as good a job being a senior advisor, a counselor, a Valerie Jarrett, a David Axelrod to him.
Yeah, Valerie Jarrett's a good example. That's a consigliere.
Right,
to President
but for
Obama.
chief of staff, you need somebody who knows how the trains run in this town.
All right, so
how
you're
you
talking
deal
Newt
with,
Gingrich,
with
then.
Congress, how you deal with the media.
You're
I'm not
talking
sure
Gingrich.
that's her strength particularly. It's frankly why I think he should put Reince Priebus in there. You need somebody, even if you want to change it. It's like Ronald Reagan put Jim Baker in.
Why not
Because
Gingrich?
even though he wanted to change Washington, he knew that you needed somebody who was very familiar with all the levers of power in order to make it work for him.
I got only 15 seconds. Why not Gingrich? He knows everything, and he's a good arm twister.
I don't think Gingrich has an interest in a staff role like that. I think he's beyond that. If he gets a department, that's one thing. You get your own plane, you get your own department. He doesn't want to sit there and wake up in the morning and brief the president. It's a tough job, but it's also a staff job. It's not a principal's job.
Chris Wallace, everyone. We'll be watching on Sunday. And you have the best Sunday show, by the way. You do.
You're right. You're right. You're the best show at 8 p.m. on cable.
Well, not just 8 p.m. Plenty more ahead as the Factor moves along this evening. In a stunning turn of events, Dick Morris will return to the Factor. Viewer warning, anything could happen. But next, protesting quarterback Colin Kaepernick says he didn't vote. Sportscaster Stephen Smith outraged. We'll hope you stay tuned for those reports. Unresolved Problem segment tonight, as you may know, ratings for the National Football League are down significantly this season. Some believe that Colin Kaepernick protest kneeling during the national anthem has turned off some viewers. Mr. Kaepernick himself says he believes America is an unjust society, but when asked if he voted on Tuesday, he said no, that he didn't care who won. That angered Stephen A. Smith, a sportscaster on ESPN, who joins us now from Philadelphia. So what's your primary beef with Kaepernick?
Well, my primary beef is that he made all of this noise about racial injustices and what have you that have been taking place in this country. And while African Americans can certainly relate to some of his feelings, you've got to follow through, because we all know that the one thing that empowers individuals in the United States of America is the power to vote. It's not something that African Americans had the right to do until 1965. How in God's name could you defer to the things that have transpired in our history? You have that right to vote, and then you don't exercise that right when people have fought and bled and died for you to have that right. It seemed to me to be counter to everything that he said, and I felt as a result that he came across as a hypocrite, and that's what I said, and that's what I'm saying tonight.
All right. Now, I've read some of his comments, Kaepernick's comments, and it comes down to he doesn't think that the system's legitimate, that any of the candidates care about African Americans, they wouldn't do anything. He's basically a nihilist. You know, he just said, look, it's a rotten country, it's a rotten system, so I'm not going to participate in it. Does that have any resonate? Does that resonate at all for you?
No, makes no. It doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm not going to say. First of all, I don't totally agree with it, but the point is, it's irrelevant, Bill. Because here's the reality: you can't legislate what's in people's heart. Fair enough, but you can go by their record. You can go by policy. You can look at what the power of your vote has the power to pull off. You're talking about Supreme Court justices that are going to be put into place.
But he doesn't believe in the system.
Laws.
He thinks everybody's corrupt and it's all rigged against the black man. So he's not going to participate. You know, he's washing his hands of the whole thing.
Well, listen, I'm a black man, and I'm here to tell you there's a lot of black folks that obviously we feel that the system itself could better serve us. There's no question about that. But at the same time, your dismay or being disenchanted with a couple of individuals that happen to be running for president, knowing you're going to have to pick one of them, it's like you're saying, I want everything the way that I want it, or I don't want to participate.
No, that's true. I mean, he's not a constructive
and it makes no
man.
sense.
Okay.
Well,
now, do you believe
the bigger point, Bill, is that he not only did not vote, but he made that public, which essentially encourages youngsters who are looking to him and following him not to vote, which is counterproductive to everything that we're supposed to be about.
There's only 8 of them, so we're not too worried about it. Do you believe that the ratings are down in the NFL because of Kaepernick?
I think that plays a role. I think also the game's a bit slower. It's too much instant replay. The negativity in terms of the concussion issues, domestic violence.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch. It's all encompassing. It's not just that, but that plays a role.
One more thing. This is what I would do if I were the owner of the San Francisco 49ers. I would tell my players, including Mr. Kaepernick, look, it's my team and it's our business, all right? So while you're on the field, you're to conduct yourself as an employee and follow the rules that we have. We respect the country. We respect the flag. So you stand while the national anthem is being played, or you stay in the locker room. All right, one of the two. I'll give you, if you don't want to, you can go in the locker room, but you're not going to embarrass this team by this protest. But I will also give you a Tuesday afternoon in a room where you can talk whatever you want to the press by yourself. If anybody wants to show up, you have freedom of speech. So, solved.
Well, I respect your position, Bill, but I'm going to respectfully disagree. I'm a fan of the show, but sometimes I disagree with you. I know it's hard for you to hear that, but it's true, and here's why. Well, here's why I would say that to you, Bill, because I would simply respond with a question. What did he do to interrupt the game? He certainly exercised his right.
He
didn't go on the
fans.
field and impede the game or anything. He brought attention to himself, but at the same time, it wasn't like he ran in front of the camera to do it. The camera followed him while he was taking the knee.
All right,
I got to think about that one,
I
Bill.
have to run, but we'll follow up. But the point is that he offended some paying customers. It's a business. He offended some paying customers. The owner of the business has a right to tell the employee, we don't want you to offend any paying customers, so don't do it.
Yeah,
but I want to continue. We gotta
you're lucky, Bill. We'll talk about this another time.
We will. I'm always lucky.
Yeah.
When we come right back.
Absolutely.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly in the Impact segment tonight. The return of Dick Morris. As you may remember, he was wrong about the Obama-Romney race 4 years ago, but Morris has made kind of a comeback, writing a book called Armageddon, bestseller, which outlined how Hillary Clinton could be defeated in this election. Then last Friday, 4 days before the vote, Morris said this.
It does appear that Trump is closing in on 270 electoral votes and could go significantly higher than the amount he needs to win.
And Dick Morris joins us now here in New York City. So you were one of the few who called it right. How did you know?
Well, I came to understand by reading the polls, working in Britain for Brexit. I was part of the United Kingdom Independence Party when it was first set up. That the major new factor in our politics are 35 million white high school educated men and women, more men than women. They are 35% of America's vote. And they feel forgotten, they feel passed over, they feel that the media and the establishment have contempt for them, they see that they're seen as flyover country, and their pent-up frustration is something that Trump really understood and really tapped into. There's no movement for them. There's no National Association for the Advancement of High School Educated People. But they kind of look at the black movement, Latino, women, Greens, gays, and they say, what about us? What about us with our problems?
Now, the left portrays that crew as racist and responding to a message from President-elect Trump of, I'm going to keep out the foreigners and I'm going to, crack down on hooligans or whatever. And then so the left, the elite, say, well, if you support that, you're a racist. Is there a racial component in that group?
I don't think so. I mean, they may individually be racist, but their frustration is not that somebody else has, but that they haven't.
So is it an economic-based frustration?
Overwhelmingly economic.
Yeah. Not social.
No. They've lost their jobs, they've lost their pensions, their houses, their marriages in some cases, their custody of children, their cars being repoed. And they look at it and they say, there is nobody, in the words of your show, who's looking out for me.
Okay. That's a very astute analysis because Trump carried them like over 60%, I think.
Well,
right?
McCain got 49% of white high school men.
Right.
Romney 55.
Right.
Trump 68.
68. Why aren't the white working class folks without a college degree joined by the blacks and the Hispanics in the same category?
Well, because the blacks and Hispanics have shifted their allegiance from private sector to government. They're not that interested as much in jobs as they are in entitlements.
Now, you're generalizing. So you believe that the Democratic Party has bought those groups?
Well, I'll give you a stat. In 1980, 1/3 of the federal budget was on entitlements. Now 2/3 is.
Does that include Social Security and
that includes
Medicare?
Social Security.
Because that's not an entitlement, really.
Well, it is, but it's not means tested.
Right.
If you take means tested entitlements, welfare,
right.
35% of America receives them.
Okay, and back in 1983?
About 18.
So it's doubled.
Doubled.
It's about doubled.
And in fact, we have 114 million people who work full-time. We have 106 million that get welfare.
Okay, so you believe that that's why, because if that coalition of blacks and Latinos were ever to join the white coalition, that would be overwhelming.
Latinos probably will. And blacks, many blacks will. I think that one thing in the black vote is there may have been a fissure between Southern blacks who stayed loyal to the Democrats and Northern blacks who began to vote like their white high school educated
Or
peers.
stay home. That was the big thing in Michigan, that you had so many blacks stay home.
But the point is, there's no leader of this movement. There's no Jesse Jackson. There's no
not
David
yet.
Free Dan. There's no Gloria
Well,
Steinem.
Donald Trump's the leader.
But there is a Donald Trump.
Right, he's the leader.
And he is the leader. He created it, and that's why he won. And that's why the liberal elites couldn't imagine that he could possibly
That's
win.
true. They don't even care about those people. You got
I think that flyover country should join the N-word.
Dick Morris, everybody.
Said.
There he is. Willie Robertson on deck. He's got some thoughts on the vote. Then the factor tip of the day, a salute to the vets. Coming right back. Back in the book segment tonight, Willie Robertson. He and his family have been very successful on the TV show Duck Dynasty, as you know. And now Mr. Robertson has a brand new book called The American Fisherman. I think it's about fishing, but he's very interested in politics as well. Willie Robertson joins us now from New Orleans. So, did you think Trump was going to win?
Well, I mean, obviously I did, because I've been supporting him for so long. But I have to admit to you, Bill, the last day I wasn't so sure. I was beginning to think it was going to be too big of an uphill battle. But I sat around with everybody else and watched him take it down.
Now, what was it about Trump that made you support him? Was it one thing?
I would say it was a combination of a lot of things. I like that he was a regular person. I was able to meet him summer before last, and got up on stage with him, was able to hang out with him in a bus, and unlike a lot of politicians that I know, he just seemed like a regular guy. And so I was interested in that big shakeup in Washington. I wanted that to happen. Also, the Supreme Court was huge for me and my family, and I just kind of liked the way he talked. He also mentioned Christians getting their heads chopped off, and he was one of the few that I heard talking about that a lot. And so yeah, he sounded like a guy that I could support, and you know, it had its ups and its downs, but I'm glad he made it.
All right, now as far as the Christian vote is concerned, President-elect Trump took it, most of it, but then you have some Christians who say, you know, he's a racist, or he's anti-Muslim, or he's not a charitable man, wants to keep people out. It's all negative, negative, negative toward the poor. Do you counter that? Do you have a counter argument to that?
Not really. I mean, you know, my family has heard a lot of those same kind of accusations, so I'm kind of used to it as well. People that don't really know you and just start spouting off what you are. I know his family very well, and I know him, and I know he's not a racist. And, you know, he's concerned with the world's problems, and so, you know, all those things were taken out. I mean, there were conversations I had, probably like a lot of husbands and wives and families. Even my father, he was behind Cruz, and so we had some interesting dinner table conversations. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, once it got down to basically two choices, it was easy for us to throw behind.
All right.
Mr.
Well, you're
Trump.
a traditional crew, and that means that you would, of course, you know, go for the traditional guy rather than the progressive. Now, your book, The American Fisherman, it's not just about casting lures out there, but you got a lot of history in that book about how.
A lot of history.
Fishing is an integral part of America and a lot of tradition. Just give me a brief headline on that.
Well, you know, we go back through the history. I read your book as well, Killing the Rising Sun. I thought it was awesome. And
thank you.
It's like your book. It's historical, but rather than the world being on the brink of annihilation, it's about fishing. So, so it's
a little bit.
Well, we do have FDR was there. FDR was there. And so when I was reading your book, it made me think about FDR, because I was writing about when he was out fishing and how he was getting away from all the problems that were going on, really heavy stuff. And that's where he found a way. And funny enough, he would jump on these naval ships, and they would take him all around these waterways, and he would go fishing, as well as other presidents. George Washington was a commercial fisherman, so it influenced the Revolutionary War.
I was looking it over. You got a lot of good stuff in history, and there's no better place to fish than Louisiana. I mean, nobody
It's
go to
one of
that
the
back
best.
those bayous, as long as the gators don't get you. I mean, you got a lot of
you can
stuff
go for
going
those
on there.
too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you don't be scared of those. You can eat those as well. So we Louisiana people have just learned how to eat anything in the water.
It's like eating your shoe, though, eating a gator. All right, the book is The American Fisherman. Willie, we always appreciate you coming on. Thanks very much. Factor tip of the day, a salute to the vets, and we have some great Christmas and Hanukkah gift ideas. That's really coming up fast, everyone. So we're going to help you out as the Factor comes right back. Factor tip of the day, we need to honor the vets in a moment. But first, a few Christmas and Hanukkah gift tips for you. Tickets for the Spin Stops Here live show selling very quickly. Miller, Waters, O'Reilly, we'll all be in Tulsa, Reading, Pennsylvania, Omaha, Nebraska, Tacoma, Washington, and my home field, Westbury, Long Island. BIP, I believe I'm trying to say. Tickets already sold out in Tacoma and Tulsa, but good seats do remain. However, you need to move it if you want to see us. Details on BillO'Reilly.com. Make somebody happy this holiday season. Also, I can sign copies of Killing the Rising Sun. Still the #1 nonfiction book in the world. But again, you got to get those orders into BillO'Reilly.com soon. Now, the mail, R. Chong Tim, Lahui, Hawaii, Aloha Bill. Your talking points covering the anti-Trump protests were on the mark. One of the biggest dangers to our republic is subversion. Patricia Rydberg, Green Acres, Florida. O'Reilly, thank you for expressing my thoughts even as I was thinking them. Treasonous actions are not covered by freedom of speech. David Thompson, Newcastle, England. Well done, Bill. You were the only nonpartisan journalist to say that Trump had a chance. Dee Dee Conklin, New Albany, Indiana. Bill, Bob Woodward should take your suggestion and further pursue the Clinton email story. I suggested the foundation story, Dee Dee. That one has more potential to be a blockbuster. There's a lot of stuff in there that we don't know. Clay Lejeune, Mandeville, Louisiana. Hey, Bill, you should acknowledge Hillary's concession speech. It was her best. I wonder if you truly listened. I listened somewhat, Clay. It was written for her, and I'm glad she said what she said, but it had little consequence for me as an American. Eileen O'Connor, VP for Communications, Yale University. Bill, you were wrong about Yale. All our students are hardworking, and in any given permission by a few professors to delay an exam will be required to make up the work. Dave Van Drunen, St. John, Indiana. Bill, you said Yale is a great school, but the student describing the campus painted a picture that Yale is part of the problem in this country. Chris McHatton, Fort Worth, Texas. I ordered Give Please a Chance for my 4-year-old niece for Christmas. I trust your wisdom, Bill, in helping the kids. Your niece will be thrilled with Give Peace a Chance, Chris, and your good uncle. The book will ignite reading for children ages 2 to 6. You can order advance. Amazon, BillO'Reilly.com, Barnes & Noble, all of that. Geraldine Blackwell, North Aurora, Illinois. Mr. O, your book, Killing the Rising Sun, was hard to put down. I was 9 years old when my dad came home from the war. Now I know why he never talked about it. And finally tonight, on the same note, the Factor tip of the day, a tip of the hat to American vets. On Veterans Day, we should all remember the men and women who have and are protecting us from the Huns, the barbarians, the savages who would kill us. As you may know, we raise a lot of money for wounded vets. The Independence Fund charity is still involved with getting high-tech wheelchairs for severely wounded vets. On Veterans Day, we hope you go to their website, independencefund.org, independencefund.org. We'll do another fundraiser for them shortly. It is a worthy endeavor. Factor tip of the day. And that is it for us tonight. Please check out the Fox News Factor website, different from BillO'Reilly.com. Also, I'd like you to spout off about the Factor from anywhere in the world. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. Name and town if you wish to opine. Where did they know Bilge when writing to the Factor? On Monday, Waters is out tracking down Americans who did not vote like Kaepernick. We're going to have a little segment on that. Again, thanks for watching us tonight. I am Bill O'Reilly, and please always remember that the spin stops right here, because we are definitely looking out for you.